we're not full in on design in terms of, hey, we're going to design this purely for the user, purely for functionality, purely for exactly what you want. It's more just like, hey, like, let's try this, and we want to kind of push the boundaries a little bit of what is defined as a backpack, what is defined as a watch, what is defined as a carabiner. Yeah, that's just kind of our ethos.
This earlier, and I think it's super important. It's something that I open my class with every semester, and it's basically understanding as designers that even though we're taught how to determine the form and certain colors, really one of the first things that communicates from a product is the material it's made out of. A lot of people tend to go into design and they, because they're in a big company or they're not exposed to it, they tend to work with the same materials that you think you're going to work with, which is plastics, certain metals. And we don't really learn how to do that in school until maybe all the way at the end, or
Sure.
when you are already working.
Right.
And something that I found super interesting is that you went completely out of that scope, and you actually created a whole design and brand around a specific material that was not necessarily used for anything like wearables. So my question is, well, you already answered why, but now I kind of want to know, as a designer, what were some challenges or things you had to work with or work around when you chose that material? You're like, okay, well, we chose it. Now we have to design either with it or around it to make it look softer or sleek or more comfortable.
No, that's a really great question. For me, I actually have a studio art degree before I came to the Academy of Art.
Oh, cool.
I did like fine arts and painting and drawing and stuff like that. And so I'm always struggling with design, actually, internally, a lot of times of what I want to express and what design should be, which is design is serving the needs of the user ultimately. Aggregate was that for me, where I was like, you know what, F it, I'm just gonna try this, and it doesn't sound really logical, but I'm gonna do it because I want to try and express myself. And it didn't come without its challenges, right? Because concrete, unlike metal, it's not as durable. So we definitely experienced a lot of iterations in the manufacturing, in the development process even, where, well, one, no factories would take us. They were like, you guys are stupid. I think we must have went to over 20 different factories. My partner was in China for 2 months, just hunting down factories that may or may not be able to work with us on it. And it was definitely a struggle. But luckily, my partner is an engineer, and he's just very self-resourceful. And so it was you know what, fine, let's just develop our own formula, and then we'll go show them that we could do it. And so after we did that, then obviously a factory would work with us. But you just have to understand what the priorities are. If our brand was meant to be an active watch or a utility watch for people going outdoors, I definitely would not use concrete, right? That's not the right case in point. But our brand was designed for artists, architects, people who wanted to feel different, people who were designers. And so we're well, they're gonna want to wear this thing, and that trade-off of having to go through all those iterations to get there was worth it. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Absolutely, it did.
Is it actually concrete? Is it just the powder that you use in concrete? Because concrete's a combination of different things.
Yeah, it's a combination of things. There is real concrete in it for sure. We use real concrete mix. We actually have a partner here in the States that we use their proprietary powder, but we also mix in some stuff on our end so that it holds together a little differently than regular architectural concrete. So yeah, especially when you're getting down to 1 millimeter, the dials are only 1 millimeter thick, right? So you can imagine like real concrete, that wouldn't even come out of the mold. So we had to like definitely put stuff like hardeners and things of that nature to basically make it so it's feasible.
Would it ever like almost give a cool aging effect to your dial on the watch? That would be something cool.
The dial is underneath the glass, so that one doesn't crack. But the bezel itself, yeah, that actually is exposed. And like it's been mixed feedback. Like there's been a ton of people that are like, hey, that's super cool. It's like patina, right? Like,
well, yeah, because there's like bronze watches that patina over it, yeah.
Right, but then there have been, like I'm telling you, like just being a business owner, you have people giving you hate emails who are like, hey, this thing.
Why is this falling apart?
Why is this chipping? And then I'm just like, it's not metal, so. But we're happy to give you a return, and they're like, no, like we just want you to send us another concrete bezel. So
like, was there anything else that you felt that you needed to kind of like sort of improve or make different, or was it just sort of like, I'm gonna do this and kind of like make the material like speak for itself?
It kind of evolved as we did it. So we first did the concrete watch. We knew that we wanted to put concrete in it, right? The little crown, the little piece where you use to change the time. I kind of noticed that like ergonomically, you would always have that dig into your wrist when you would bend your wrist. And so I was like, all right, let's just move it to 2 o'clock. That at least makes it look a little different. So things like that, little details. And then the asymmetry of that carried over into the buckle as well. And then thinking about concrete as a material, we made the boxes look like concrete basically. In bags. So it's like a bag of concrete basically when you order the watch. Now in 2020, we've since done some other products as well. So we did a backpack recently, a 𝐂𝐇𝐀𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐋 backpack. And so that's not concrete, but it's using an unconventional construction material that was like very raw. And so now we make bags out of that. And so I think like we're kind of just building on the idea of aggregate, not necessarily just being concrete, but just taking things and materials, experimenting materials. Really, it's if you think about it, it's not necessarily, it's kind of bordering design and art, right? Like we're kind of expressing ourselves, and we're not full in on design in terms of, hey, we're going to design this purely for the user, purely for functionality, purely for exactly what you want. It's more just like, hey, like let's try this, and we want to kind of push the boundaries a little bit of what is defined as a backpack, what is defined as a watch, what is defined as a carabiner. That's just kind of our ethos. It's a fun, safe place to play in basically for us as designers. Because on my other business, I have to do exactly what the client says, right? So
I was just about to say, like, when you were in school, it's kind of cool that even though in the beginning you're like, oh, just give me some limitations. You can't just tell me to design anything I want, because it's actually kind of hard to just not have any limitations. But then you get to a professional setting where you have to always think about what your client wants, whether your client is your boss within the company or you're a studio and you have different clients and you have to change your style according to your client. So it's brave and really innovative to just decide as a designer, like, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing. If people like it, they like it. But in you guys' situation, people really, really did like it. So that's awesome.
Thinking back on it now, it's just like, that was kind of, reckless a little bit, like, because it's funny, because like when I actually design stuff for clients or for companies, I actually have a very stringent methodology of like what I will and won't do, because I'm really thinking about the end user. But in this case, I kind of threw a lot of that out the door, and I think we're just lucky enough that it worked out, but it could have gone the other way too.
Seeing how like collaboration's a huge thing right now, do you guys plan on doing anything like that anytime soon? No.
So we get a lot of requests for collaborations. We did do one with Adapt Clothing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Adapt Clothing. They do all the gold-blooded sportswear for like the Niners and for the Warriors. That CEO is like a friend of mine. And so we will be doing more collaborations with them. While we definitely love collaborating, it has to be the right fit for us too. Like they have to kind of believe in like pushing the boundaries. Like I don't want to just make another bag. right? Like,
Yeah.
or I don't want to just make another watch. It has to fit within the ethos of our brand and their brand.
What has the impact of like your knowledge in manufacturing processes and the materials you're working with? What big of an impact has it made on your design process and your design thinking over time?
For me, it's like opened up a lot more possibility as opposed to just, I think it's going to look like this, but I have no idea how to make that happen. Like I said, you have to navigate a lot of different stakeholders, and so a lot of times it's at the manufacturing and production level. And at that level, you're going to get a lot of pushback for people who don't want to push the boundaries of, for instance, the concrete, right? Like if you arm yourself with knowledge is power, then you can basically show them a path of how they can do it. And maybe it's harder for them or takes more work for them to do it, but at least if you can show them that that's the possibility, then you can basically start to push the fringes of what has been and then what is like new. So that's how you come up with new stuff, right?
Thank you so much, guys.
Good luck in the future, for real. Love the watches.
Thanks. Well, yeah, thanks so much, guys, for having me, and thanks you so much, Victoria, for having me here. I think it's really fun to chat with you guys. Yeah, feel free to reach out anytime with any questions or any tips I can provide for you guys. Yeah, this is fun.
Thank you.